Woodbridge, Virginia, who wants to talk about the hiddenness of God. And you're on with Tracie and John.
Hey, Salvador.
Hi, John. Hi, Tracie.
Hello.
Thanks so much for taking my call. I'm calling from an old-fashioned landline.
Wow.
I hope my audio is coming through.
Sounds great.
Sounds better than many calls.
I really enjoyed today's show. And the topic I wanted to talk about is the hiddenness of God and dealing with it.
Okay.
I'm a Christian creationist, writer, and researcher, but I'm a big fan of Matt Dillahunty and the other hosts and callers of the show because I could relate to a lot of the ordeals former Christians go through on the way out of the faith. Some years back, I nearly left the faith for good before I came back. Up until that point, and maybe on and off for years after, I've been subject to a lot of berating for asking reasonable questions or expressing doubts about the Bible. So that's definitely left a totally bad taste in my mouth. So a couple Bible verses. John 9:25, whether he, Jesus, is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. And Proverbs 25:2, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It is the glory of kings to search out a matter. I know people claiming they've witnessed miracles, and I have no reason to doubt their sincerity. It may have been a coincidence, but it would bother my conscience to insist it was just a coincidence because that may be the one miracle that God gave them in this life. And then after that, God remains mostly hidden in human affairs and in their life. I have one specific account that has haunted me through the years. It's astronaut Charles Duke. He became a Christian after he returned from walking on the moon, and he relates how he prayed for a blind girl, and within a few minutes her sight was restored. So notwithstanding your very good objections about the absence of evidence for God, it seems reasonable to me that this girl would put her faith and trust in Jesus from that point on. And even if I were not a Christian, I don't know that I'd be too quick to try to take that away from her, because that could have been the work of God. I can imagine her saying, one thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. So,
and that would be pretty much all you could say about it. That would be the only honest comment to make. Like the guy says, I don't know who it was. I don't know what his story was. I think earlier in the chapter he says that he thinks Jesus is a prophet. But the fact is, the only thing that a person like that could say is, I couldn't see before, I can see now, I don't know why. That would be the only honest statement.
That would be the
honest
yes,
statement.
Without any inferences.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm a former scientist in the defense industry, and I take a lot of comfort in repeatable experiments. I believe things that you can repeat, and I really don't hold it against anyone for not believing because of the hiddenness of God. So my question is, would one miracle, like what happened to that girl or happened to that blind beggar in the New Testament, would that do it for you if it happened to you, or would you prefer constant visits?
Not unless there was some way to actually identify a cause.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're basically saying is something happened, I can't explain it, and I'm going to just attribute it to X, even though I have no way to know if X exists or was involved. And I noticed that when you talked about miracles, you said it's hard to know whether they're a miracle or a coincidence. And so what I'm noticing here is that basically your definition of miracle then would include things that can naturally occur, right? Because you're basically saying you can't tell if it's a miracle or not. And so you just go with, okay, if they're saying that they feel like it was a miracle, then it's a miracle. But some of these things could just be coincidence. And so you're basically defining miracle as like things that can happen.
I'm defining miracles as things that would be exceptional.
Okay,
And,
so
I agree with your
coincidences.
point that you can't, it's not a formal inference to say that God did it or whatever. But I mean, if I were that little girl that in that account by astronaut Duke, if I were blind and someone prayed for me in the name of Jesus, I think I'd probably want to follow Jesus the rest of my life.
I would probably wonder why this person doesn't go to a hospital and just start healing everybody, because I would think that whether or not there's a God is irrelevant. This person has healing power. And so the person should be going and healing tons of people. Like go to the children's ward and heal all the kids of cancer. That would be my first thought.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. If you can
I
heal
think that's
blindness, go
reasonable.
heal all the blind people that want to be healed.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's everything you're saying there is reasonable. I guess I've just come to the point where I believe that just like that proverb, it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. I think it'll just, the idea behind, the theology behind that is that in the final day, when it's revealed, it's like a surprise.
It would be a surprise to everybody who's reasonable, because if you're basically saying that God is hiding, right, that you have a divine being that is hiding itself in everyday occurrences or in, like exceptional coincidences or whatever, that basically when you see this God, you can't differentiate it from just crap that happens, then I would say that at the end of it, anybody who says, I knew there was a God, doesn't understand how to reason. Because if God is hiding and he's not hiding successfully, then it's not much of a hide. And if he is hiding successfully, and if he is indiscernible from things that can happen, then why would anybody assume reasonably that this is the work of a God?
Well, those are really good questions, and I think you probably stumped me on that. It's really good food for thought, and I like having my ideas challenged. So.
Well, that's fair. I mean, I totally, and I want people to know that I'm cool with that. If I think a lot of times callers are scared to call in because they're like, well, what if you say something and I don't know how to answer it? And it's like, if you don't know how to answer it, then you say exactly what you just said. I hadn't thought of it that way. Maybe I'll go think about that. And that's totally fair. I don't ever want people to call up and be afraid and think that they have to be able to respond to everything, because then we get really ridiculous calls where people are just desperately trying to defend a thing instead of just saying, this is something I haven't thought of, and I probably need to take a step back and maybe call again later, after I've thought about that. So I just want to kind of pull out what you just said as a great example of how to respond when you're hit with something that you do need to go and think about some more. You don't have to react to it, and sometimes reacting to it makes people say really ridiculous things. And the best thing you can say is, I'm not sure how to respond to that. Let me go and think about it. And that's completely fair. And I want people to always feel comfortable saying that when they call the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because, even though I'm a professing Christian, I really want people to not try to make stupid responses when they're challenged.
And it's just because they get nervous, I think, and it's like they don't have to.
Well, and a lot of times people don't want to admit that there's something that they don't know. They think that maybe they don't have enough faith if they're willing to admit that. Or
they feel like they might feel themselves pressing themselves to say, like, I'm wrong, and they don't want to be wrong. And it's like, you don't even have to say you're wrong. You can literally, if it means, sorry, I didn't mean to hit my mic, but if it means, if it's that intimidating, you don't have to say you're wrong. You can just say, I need to go and consider that. That's totally fair.
So if I could kind of restate understand what your response was, as you said that if someone had that healing power, it'd be more convincing to you if they went to hospitals and started healing.
Well, it would convince me that they could heal, right? It wouldn't convince me
about Jesus.
Why, right? I mean, they may not even know why. Like the person who's praying to God for the power to heal, they may have an inherent power to heal that we don't understand, and they think God is doing it because they are in that
they're Christian
framework, right? And they think the power is coming from God, but maybe they just have some weird inherent healing capacity. I mean, we don't know what would be causing it, but I would be able to say this person went to a children's ward and started healing all the children at the hospital, and that's amazing. And we don't know how they're doing it, and we need to investigate that. But that's really, at least we'd be able to see that they have a capacity to heal.
Well, I mean, I do respect that. If I could say just for myself, I'd be kind of afraid not to. I mean, if someone healed me in the name of Jesus, and again, I'm referring to the story of the little girl. I mean, I personally think, like I said, I would not think to try to talk her out of Jesus being the source of her healing. I mean, that's between her.
Well, I wouldn't. It's not like I'm going to go and hunt her down. I mean, if she wanted to discuss it, I would be happy to discuss it with her. But I'm just saying, if to the question of what if this happened to me, if something like that happened to me, if some guy prayed and put hands on me and healed me, I would be like, this guy needs to come with me down to the cancer center, and we need to start healing everybody like this. Like, we just need to go and do this. Because I really wouldn't care where he thinks he gets his power. I would only care that he has the ability to do this.
Well, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank
you give
you.
me a lot to think about.
Well, I appreciate your points. Thanks very much, Salvador.